Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome back to today's Extraordinary Connection. My name is Devin Smith, and I have the privilege of serving at Romeo United Methodist Church, and I'm glad to have you joining me for this time here today. I'm sure I'm not alone that every once in a while I find myself on my phone just scrolling through that news feed, scrolling through it on my phone or my computer, and I'm not looking for anything in particular. I'm just seeing what's out there, seeing what's happen in the local community or the state, in our country, or around the world. I'm just perusing. And I have a wide array of topics that are selected as my interests, those stories that are promoted and show up in my feed for me to read. And one of those interests I have is sports. I've enjoyed participating in and watching sports for really as long as I can remember. So it wasn't unusual for me the other day to see a story about a PGA event on my news feed. But what was slightly unusual was that it actually caught my attention. It caught my eye, and it made me want to click through to it. Because while I do enjoy the occasional round of golf with family or friends, I've never really tuned in to watch golf on TV. I've never attended to live events. I've not had a lot of interest in following the PGA Tour. But this headline, this caught my attention, and I had to read it. I had to know more. And this was the headline and the story that made me pause. Pro golfer withdraws from tournament after receiving 10-stroke penalty. And no, that isn't a typo or a mistake there. It really says 10-stroke penalty. Now I have to admit that part of the reason I had to click through was I really needed to know what he had possibly done that got him a 10-stroke penalty. Had he pulled a Happy Gilmore-esque tirade of swearing and club throwing that saw that penalty imposed? Had he gotten into an over-the-top argument with a spectator that he deemed was breathing too loud during his backswing or something equally crazy? What was his grievous error that had caused such a severe and, let's be honest, tournament-ending penalty to be imposed on him? Well, it turned out to be nothing that exciting, nothing anywhere near that exciting, because the golfer's sin for that round was that he had used the wrong ball. It turns out the golfer, Mark Hensby, had put a shot into the water, not an unusual occurrence, especially when I'm on the golf course, but he put his shot into the water on a hole. So this, of course, required him to reach into the bag and pull out a new ball, another ball to continue playing. But it was some 4 holes later that he happened to glance at that ball he'd been using. And he noticed on that ball a single small dot that he wasn't used to seeing, that wasn't on his ball normally. He mentioned it to his caddy, who likewise was confused by the odd dot that was on that ball. So he went to his playing partners to see if they could explain, if they had any ideas. They went on to tell him that it indicated that it was actually a different type of ball, a low spin ball, different from the ball that he normally played, different from the ball that he had started the round with. And the 2 balls were otherwise identical, save for that one small dot. And Hensby, he believes that he may have accidentally picked it up while on the practice green earlier in the day, and he's put it in his bag without noticing. Now, I may have just given you well more information than you care to know about golf and the equipment used, but I did so to get to this point. Because you see, at that moment, Mark Hensby, he had a choice to make. He could have put that incorrect ball back into his bag and pulled out another one and continued his round with any of the other dozen or so balls that he had with him. Or he could call over the tournament referee and admit his mistake, admit what had happened. And as you can guess from the headline that I showed you, Mark Hensby, he chose the latter option. He reported his mistake, his violation of the Model Local Rule G4, also known as the one ball rule, requires players to use the same make, model, and type of ball for the entire round. And after reporting his error to the tournament official, he was made aware of the penalty for his violation. This penalty would be a 2-stroke penalty on every hole that he had used the incorrect ball. Having used that ball for the past 5 holes, his penalty came out to 10 strokes. And to his credit, he took the penalty in stride. He finished his round. He didn't throw one of those tirades or fits. He actually golfed pretty well to finish that round before deciding to withdraw because the 10-stroke penalty had all but guaranteed he would be at the bottom of the leaderboard. Now, if I didn't lose you with all the golf discussion here, I'd like to bring this back around. That choice he made to self-report his error. Because as I mentioned, he could have put the ball back in his bag, continued playing. Maybe no one else would have noticed, would have said anything. Maybe he would have finished the round. No one would have been any the wiser. But he didn't. He owned up to the mistake, even one that was made fully unintentionally. And he did the right thing. How many of you have ever faced that situation? And no, I'm not talking about the situation of potentially taking a 10-stroke penalty. What I'm asking is, how many of you have had a time that you made a mistake? Maybe it was an innocent one, but then you find yourself in that moment of truth. The moment when you can own up to it, deal with the consequences or repercussions, or maybe you can quietly tuck it away, put it in your bag, and hope no one's going to notice. No one will be the wiser. I'm going to bet that at some point we've all been the kid caught with our hand in the metaphorical cookie jar. But it's how we choose to respond that really shows who we are as a person. I'd never heard of Mark Hensby prior to a few days ago. And honestly, I'll not remember him for being a fabulous golfer or winning a bunch of championships or anything else that has to do with his golf game. But I'll remember him. I'll remember that name based on what I know of his character, his integrity, because of the decision he made on that golf course. How are people going to remember you based on your actions? Based on the choices you will have during your life? Will they remember that you did the honorable or right thing and owned up to your mistakes, that you said you were sorry, that you dealt with the repercussions? Or are they going to remember you in a different light? We face this same challenge, these same circumstances when it comes to our sins, the sins we've committed in our lives. We can try to hide them away. We can pretend like they didn't happen. We can pretend like they're not that big a deal. I know others have done worse. Or we can seek the opportunity to do the right thing. We can seek to come clean before God, to not carry that weight and that guilt around with us. And my friends, here's the good news. God is ready. God is willing to forgive when we confess. I could spend the better part of the day here reading you scriptures about forgiveness, about God wanting to forgive. But instead, I pulled out just this one verse. Remember, one verse from today, if nothing else. This is 1 John 1, verse 9. If we confess our sins, he who is faithful, God who is faithful and just, will forgive us our sins and cleanse us from all unrighteousness. Don't tuck the ball away and try to hide it from God, from others, from yourself. Yeah, you might incur your very own 10-stroke penalty, but you will be able to walk away with a clean conscience, knowing you've done the right thing, right by yourself, right by others, right by God. Until next time, friends, stay safe, take care, and God bless.